My name is Julianne Forrestal and I'm the craft development chef for Sodexo here in Ireland. Today I'm going to be making a cottage pie and that's going to be topped with a parsnip and carrot and potato mash. So for your ingredients you're going to need a pound of lean minced beef, you're going to need some butter, some flour, some tomato puree, some thyme. Now I have a selection of both dried and fresh so you can use either. I have a beef stock made up and that's just one of the little jelly packs that you can buy anywhere. They're really readily available. I have for the topping, I have some peeled and diced potatoes and I also have some carrots and parsnips, and these are great because these are really coming into season now at the moment, so they'll be really nice and sweet. I also have just a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, and again that just adds another little element of flavour to the dish. It's a really simple dish, it's something that you can make in advance. It holds really well and works equally well when you keep it for a day in the fridge. It's perfectly fine. So just to start, I have my pan already heated and I'm going to seal my meat. But because I have the mash, the potatoes and the carrots and parsnips, these are quite tough veg to cook, so these will take the longest. So I'm just going to put some of these into the bowl and we get these on to cook just while our meat is browning. So I'm just going to place the potatoes into the water. Always start with cold water. So anything that grows under the ground, you start in cold. And then I'm just going to add the carrots and parsnips. And these will cook along nicely together and you get some really nice sweetness to your mash from the carrots and the parsnips because there's natural sugars in them. So then we have our lean minced beef. And again, you can get lots of variations of beef, but the one I have here is the 0%. And the reason being that when you cook the meat, it will actually not hold too much water, so you'll be left with like a really nice dry beef. So what you want to do is just let that beef cook away. Now it says in the recipe that you can add oil. In this case I'm not, because I'm using a non-stick pan. And the oil will actually, you'll see, it will start to come away from the beef. And I'm actually going to drain that, and you can see here it's coming together nicely. So I'm just going to turn up the oven a little bit, and we'll just get that started. So while that's cooking, I'm going to get the base. So this is just the flavours that are going to be added to your mince. So for this, I'm going to add a little bit of butter and we'll just let that melt. So there's our beef coming along nicely, and you can see some of the excess liquid that is starting to come away. This we're going to take away because really what will only happen is you'll get the fat that will come to the surface. So we don't want any of that. We want a really nice dry meat, and then that will give you the nice flavours then when we add our stock and our sweated off onions to the mix. So our butter is starting there to melt, so I'm going to add my onions into that pan. And then once your meat is all cooked through, I'm going to strain it and I'm going to put it back onto the pan. So once that excess water and liquid is removed, you'll actually be able to caramelise your meat, because as it is at the moment, it's kind of going to stew as opposed to fry, and what we really want is some nice colour going into the meat. So with this, I'm just going to start stirring my onions. So you can see they're starting to soften, and this will give us a really nice base flavour. The onions have like a natural sweetness to it, which is really nice. Once they've started to soften, I'm going to add some thyme. As I said, you can use fresh or dried, and dried will go a lot further, so you only need a tiny little bit. We'll just sprinkle a little bit of the dried thyme over the onions. I'm also going to add some of my flour. The flour is going to thicken the dish. Now if you're celiac or you don't want to use flour, you can of course use corn flour as your thickening agent as well. So to this, I'm just going to add my small bit of flour and just make sure that it coats, and that way you get no lumps and bumps then going through your dish. I'm going to add some tomato puree, and again this will give a really nice colour, but it also adds lots and lots of flavour. So we'll add that in, just a small little bit, and give that a stir. Once that is added, we're going to add our lovely liquid. Now, like I said, I have some jelly stock pots made up already, so we just add that to the onions. And you'll see that with the flour, this will actually start to thicken nearly the minute the liquid is added to it. And this gives us a really nice foundation for the meat, which is now really starting to come along nicely now. As you can see now, the caramelisation has started to happen, and with no fluid now. So what we really want to do is let the mince absorb the lovely flavours that are in your pan with the onions. So we're going to add the mince to the liquid mix, like so, and we'll give that a little stir. And just make sure to combine all the ingredients together. And I suppose the beauty of this dish is now you can actually turn your temperature right down, and you can leave it there for about 20 minutes. And what will happen is the sauce will actually go darker, the onions will actually melt away, so you get this really, really nice mince. And I suppose at this point you could step away and you could use it either for a cottage pie, or ideally you could also add a tin of kidney beans and it would make a really nice chilli, or again if you were making a lasagna. So this is like a really, I suppose, a recipe that you can build as a foundation and change it and adapt. So I'm going to just turn this down, and we leave that to cook for 20 minutes. And in the meantime then your mash will also be ready as well. So I'm just going to assemble the dish. So we have our mashed potato and carrots and parsnips ready. So I'm just going to strain them off, and we just remove all the excess liquid from that. So I'm just going to mash my potatoes and my carrots and parsnips, and you can see, because I've strained them and let them dry, you want to cook them out so that you get like a really creamy mashed potato. I'm going to season it up now at this stage, so I'm going to add some salt and pepper, and your mince will have lots of flavour, because I suppose when you're using a beef stock, you know, there can be natural salt in that, so you don't want to add too much salt because it'd be really hard to take it away. You can always add, but you can never take salt out. So I'm going to just give that a nice mash, and then just for flavour, just an extra layer, and it'll also help when it's in the oven to brown. I'm just adding a small little bit of butter, and this will help just to spread it over the top. It'll just make it much easier when we're putting the dish together. So we just mash that nicely together, and you can see there's some nice little, I suppose, flecks of the carrots, and I suppose it just breaks the change from just purely potato. I suppose you're getting the added vitamins from the carrots and the parsnips as well, which is always really good. So this is ready. So I'm just going to move my mince across, and I'm going to put it into a serving dish. So you can see that sauce has really thickened up. All your onions have gone really, really soft, and it's got a really, really nice colour. So I'm going to just tip that into a little Pyrex dish, or any type of bowl that you have. You just want to make sure that it's oven proof, and just put that into the sink. So if you just spread it out evenly across the dish, and spread it out across. And you can always add, you know, I suppose if you wanted to, you could add some frozen peas, or you could add a little bit of sweet corn, or even some tomatoes if you wanted, just to bulk out the recipe as well. So that's all nicely flattened, and then I'm going to get my mashed potato. So this is something that you can do, and again you can leave in your fridge and cook then at a later stage. So you can make this up in the morning and then just put it back into the oven then later in the day. So if you just spread your mash out in little dollops like that over the top, it'll just make it easier then when we come to spread it. So out of this dish, you probably get at least 9 servings, because with the mince and the potato it does go a little bit further. So you can have, I suppose the recipe would say 6, but if you needed to, you could actually stretch it out a little bit further. So I'm just going to flatten that down. Just make sure it goes right out to the edges, and then just run your spoon up and down. Now you can leave it like that if you wish, but I always like using a fork because it just reminds me of my own mum at home, just running the fork over the top. And then we're going to put this into the oven, and what will happen is the meat will continue to cook, and it'll actually bubble up around it and kind of give it a lovely crisp shell around the outside. Again, if you wanted to, you can always add a spoonful of grated cheese to have it as a cheesy mash. So I'm just going to pop that into the oven. Just be careful that the underneath it is slightly hot, and then pop it in your oven. And we'll leave that for half an hour to 35 minutes. So I'm just going to take the cottage pie now out of the oven, and just use a cloth. Just be very careful because the dishes do get really hot. I'm just going to lift that out. So you can see that the nice sauce has just bubbled up around the edges, and your mash has turned like a kind of a darker hue. So I just have a plate ready with some salad and tomatoes, but as I said, you can use vegetables with this, it's equally well. I suppose it's still kind of autumn, so kind of still in lighter eating mode, but as it gets into winter, you can add something to it. But you can see, there you go. Make sure to get some of that mince then at the side. Just serve it there on the side. And there you go. There's our cottage pie with potato, mash and parsnip and carrot puree.